Let's move to 1047.
Mr. Chair and members, Senate Bill 1047 prohibits the National Guard of Arizona from being released from Arizona into active duty combat unless Congress has passed an official declaration of war or has taken an official action to explicitly call forth the National Guard to execute the laws of the Union, repel an invasion, or suppress an insurrection, and requires the governor to take all actions necessary to comply with the prohibition. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you. Senator.
Mr. Chair, members, this is the Defend the Guard bill, which we have run before, and it is a national effort. We are one of many states across the Union running this bill in various state legislatures. And again, it essentially says that we will not send our National Guard into combat in a foreign land unless the United States Congress declares war. And I would like to defer now, if I may, to some subject matter experts who are in the room who can testify to this.
All right. Madam Vice. Do you want the subject matter guy to come first?
He has to go to the airport.
Okay, yeah.
Dan McNite.
Okay, Mr. McKnight?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you so much for your time. As mentioned, my name is Dan McKnight. I'm a 13-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps, the United States Army, and the Idaho Army National Guard, and I served a combat tour in Afghanistan from 2005 to 2007. I'm also currently the chairman of a veterans organization called Bring Our Troops Home, made up primarily of global war on terror veterans, and we advocate for Defend the Guard legislation in 30 states concurrently right now across the United States. This bill is about one simple constitutional principle, that if Arizona National Guardsmen are going to be sent into war, then Congress must declare it. In December, in Syria, 2 Iowa Army National Guard soldiers were killed by an ISIS attack, a U.S. civilian interpreter was killed, and 3 other Iowa Guardsmen were also injured. 2 years prior to that, in Tower 22 drone attack near the Syrian border, 41 Arizona Guardsmen were injured. And there's never been a declaration of war or any congressional authorization whatsoever to send the United States military to Syria. In these so-called limited engagements, it's often the Guard component holding the line. They're the residual force, they're the tripwire, they're the troops that are left behind. They're a small footprint that can escalate into broader conflict under one attack. These citizen soldiers, they're teachers, they're policemen, they're tradesmen, they're parents, they're our neighbors. They live in our communities, they're citizen soldiers. And the National Guard exists first to defend our homeland, to secure our borders, to protect our communities, and to maintain readiness for wars that Congress has declared. And when they're properly called forth by Congress, under the authority of the Constitution or federal law, the National Guard should fight and win America's wars, and they are more than capable of doing so. When Congress deliberates, debates, and votes for a declaration of war, it demonstrates the express informed consent of the American people to change the condition of our nation from one of peace to one of war. That's how a republic is supposed to work. And when that happens, the people's representatives have taken responsibility, and Congress can provide real oversight, real accountability, and clear objectives. We can't afford another runaway war like Afghanistan or Iraq, where missions drifted, objectives changed, trillions were spent, thousands of lives were lost, and senior officials admitted decades later that they had no idea what they were doing. This can never happen again. This bill does not interfere with training, border missions, or disaster response. It simply restores constitutional order, and if the Arizona National Guard is going to be sent into war, Congress must declare it, and I'm happy to stand for any questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
No, Mr. Chair, it's to the sponsor.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, Mr. Chair, Senator Rogers, has this...
Before, anybody have any questions for the...
I would like Mr. Chair, the subject, excuse me, Mr. McKnight to stand by if I don't have as technical of an answer as I would like.
Okay, Mr. Chair, Senator
Yes, ma'am.
Rogers, has the language in this bill changed? Because it has been introduced in 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. Each time has died. The National Guard does not want this. So hopefully in this bill, something has changed. Has any part of the language changed?
Mr. Chair,
Senator.
Senator Miranda, the language has stayed the same, and I'm glad you brought up the National Guard Bureau, because to date, I have not had a written response from them on this bill and what their stated opinion is, and if I may ask Mr. McKnight, am I correct in that?
Mr. McKnight?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And Senator Rogers, that's correct. For 4 years here in Arizona specifically, we've had all the warnings, the quiet whispers that the National Guard is opposed to this. But the Secretary of War himself has endorsed the bill. Members of the President's administration have endorsed the bill. And nobody, like Senator Rogers said, has produced a written statement from the National Guard Bureau saying anything at all, not once. Not once. They whisper that we may lose funding, which we know is not true. In fact, Arizona's co-dean of your congressional delegation, Representative Paul Aguirre, wrote an article where he said, some opponents contend that the passage of this bill would potentially threaten Arizona National Guard and federal funding. This is incorrect. There is nothing in federal law that would eliminate federal funding if Arizona passes the Defend the Guard Act, nor would Congress pass such legislation. And I pledge under no circumstances will I allow any administration to defund our state's National Guard. I know the House of Representatives would not approve of such dereliction and nonsense, and the House controls the purse string. So the short answer is there has been no opposition. There is no change to the bill. It's passed this body, I think 3 times, or out of committee 3 times, passed the whole body, committee as a whole 3 times. And so what we do know is that it's been endorsed by people in authority to say that we would not lose any funding in Arizona. What we do know is that it's constitutional. What we do know is that in the House last year, in the House committee, 35-year Command Sergeant Major and Chairman of the Military Affairs Committee, John Gillette, called the DOD himself. He called the administration himself. He had 5 generals from the DOD say that they have no opposition to this bill whatsoever, and he made a comment that said this bill meets all constitutional muster. So I hope that answers your question, Senator Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, Senator Rogers, you said it passed in committee as a whole, but in 2022, it was never heard in committee. In 2023, it was never heard in the House. In 2024, it was never heard in the House. And in 2025, it was never heard on the floor in the House. So I just need to know there's no support for it. I'm just trying to find some support or some different language.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
Senator Miranda, I think what Mr. McKnight meant was it passed out of the Senate. And what the reasoning was on it not getting through the Arizona State House is anybody's guess, but the majority is so slim that 1 or 2 people against it could spoil it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
Senator Rogers, has any other state passed any legislation like this?
Mr.
Senator.
Chair, Senator Miranda, that's a great question. Mr. McKnight, I think, could you list the states where it's gotten somewhat through their legislatures?
Yes, Mr. McKnight.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and Senator Miranda, thanks for that question. Just 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, it passed the New Hampshire House of Representatives for a second time. Last year, it passed the Virginia House of Delegates 99-0 with full bipartisan support. It's passed the Idaho Senate. It's passed the Arizona Senate twice. It is moving through states, and we all know that good legislation takes time. It's very rare that a good bill passes on a first attempt, and we can all point to reasons why it passes one house and not the other. And I don't think anybody in this room would argue that the Arizona House functioned as a cohesive and efficient body last year. There was a lot of turmoil there. But we work the members actively. We know kind of where the whip count is at, and we feel it'll pass fairly strong in Idaho this year. It's going to pass. It's going to get a good good showing in New Hampshire. It may pass the Senate and then go to the governor's desk. And we feel like we have the numbers in the House and the Senate in Arizona to put this on Governor Hobbs' desk as well.
Any
Mr. Chair,
others? Yes.
thank you. I don't know if this question is for the expert or senator, the sponsor of the bill, but is the administration in favor of this bill? The
Mr.
executive?
McKnight,
And Mr. Chair, Mr. McKnight,
would you like to answer it?
are you asking federally?
No, state.
Oh, the executive then,
Yes,
Mr.
Senator.
Chair. Don't know, but I would say that the farther we get it each time, if possible, is a worthy pursuit.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
a follow-up. So you've not had any conversations, Senator Rogers, on this bill with Governor Hobbs or her staff or office on this bill?
Senator.
Mr. Chair, Senator Gonzalez, I have not.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Do you have a question?
Yes, Mr.
Yes.
Chair, Senator Rogers, as I look at the, as it talks about statutorily complying with this, when you brought the concern and said you've only heard whispers, but basically it's outlined that said that the National Guard, so our state's National Guard, would be barred from receiving federal funding if we refuse to comply with statutorily outlined duties. And that's where I think there's and he did, Mr. Chair, Senator Rogers, I heard that one of the congressmen is saying that they would work to make that not happen, but as this is proposed, it would put this federal funding in jeopardy.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Senator.
Senator Sears, that is the debate, really. We do not read it as such that it would put the federal dollars in jeopardy, and it was Congressman Gosar, also a rural congressman, who stipulated that. And Mr. McKnight, if you'd like to elaborate any more on my answer, Mr. Chair.
Would you like to?
Mr. Chair, yes.
All right.
Thank
Ms.
you, thank you,
McKnight.
Senator. Thank you, Senator. That's a great question. The threats of federal funding are always there. When with nobody willing to put their name on the line or a title or cite any statutory requirement that would require Arizona to lose their federal funding, it's nothing more than an empty threat. It's a ghost whisper. And to date, nobody has been willing to point to any statutory. In fact, the Impoundment Act of 1974 says that once Congress appropriates the money, there is nobody that can change that. And if you don't believe that to be true, in recent past, President Trump came out on his soapbox, pounded his chest, and said, "I'm done funding USAID." And the Supreme Court struck it down so fast he didn't know what hit him, because Congress had already appropriated those funds. Congress controls the purse string. The co-equal branches of government are the legislative body, the executive, and the judiciary. The legislative body is supposed to pass good legislation that represents the will of the constituents, and then the executive is to enforce that. And that's the way it's supposed to work. And so when we have these empty threats, that is the executive branch and members within it trying to influence the legislative process. That's not federalism. That's not the way it's supposed to work. And I know ultimately the executive has to be the one that signs the bills, but that's how good legislation works. That's how the proper levers of influence. That's how citizen activists, how concerned members of society have a way to be engaged in the democratic process. And so the threat of the federal funding, like I said, it's a threat. There's no one that's been willing to put their name on it yet. And we've got 2 dozen, 3 dozen maybe hearings across the country where no one will put their name on the threat. They just say, "We've heard, we've been told it could happen." And if you build a second order effect on a fallacy of a first order effect, even the second one becomes nothing more than speculation.
Senator Rogers, Mr. Chair, Senator Rogers, and Speaker, I think what I'm hearing you saying it's an empty threat, sir. At the same time, I think the counter side is you're not saying based on these statutes that it wouldn't pose a threat. So I'm hearing your testimony as saying a congressperson saying I'll stand up and I'll defend it. So I hear your testimony, and I take all of this in advisements as saying, well, this would be a fight rather than there's a clear through line to not put our federal funds at rest. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, Senator Rogers, so how do you expect to increase policing or militarization in terms of immigration enforcement, but want to decrease the presence of the National Guard, which will in turn decrease our federal military budget?
Senator?
Mr. Chair, Senator Miranda, I see you're wanting to conflate two issues, so I'll tease out the relevant one, which is the National Guard. The National Guard, as we said, is utilized to defend the homeland, defend the border, respond to floods, fires, assisting citizens here in our state. And that's what we're talking about, vis-a-vis dispatching them overseas to a combat zone without federal authorization.
Any other questions?
I have another question,
Yes.
Mr. Chair and Mr. McKnight?
That's correct.
Thank you. My information, I asked you a question, what state has passed this bill, and you read a few of them. I remember Idaho. My information tells me that there's no state that has passed this bill.
I think he was saying, Senator, that one house or the other is what he'd been saying.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you for that clarification, Mr. Chair. My question was, has any state, passed the legislation and was signed into law? That was my question, but thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Madam Vice?
Paul Aguirre. I pronounced it incorrectly. Please correct my terrible pronunciation of your name. I've always gotten away with it because no one can say my first name, so sorry.
It's Paul Aguirre, Senator.
Aguirre, thank you. Please.
So, Mr. Chairman, distinguished members of the Senate Military Affairs and Border Security Committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Paul Aguirre. I'm retired from the Arizona National Guard. I was enlisted in the Army National Guard, and I was commissioned later on in the Air National Guard and spent over 30 years there, as well as 3 years in active duty. I'm also a combat veteran of Afghanistan in 2011, 2012. I'm here to respectfully urge you to oppose the National Guard active duty requirements. While I understand the intent behind this bill, it is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of the National Guard's mission. The National Guard is not only a state emergency force, it's the primary combat reserve United States Army and Air Force, and has served in that role for decades. Most versions of this bill would severely restrict the Guard's ability to perform federal missions unless Congress issues a formal declaration of war. They go into Title X duty often. That would not only limit deployments, it could prevent overseas annual training, airlift operations, remotely piloted aircraft missions, and other critical missions that require Guard members to operate in federal Title X status. If Arizona were to adopt this legislation, we also risk signaling to the federal government that our state is unwilling to uphold its federal obligations. And that could put at risk the very resources our Guard depends on and our state cannot afford, including federal units, equipment, training priorities, and funding. Even more concerning, this type of legislation strengthens the Pentagon's long-standing argument that Guard forces are often not reliably accessible. It could become justification to shift Guard infrastructure and missions into active duty Army and Air Force, permanently weakening the Guard nationwide. Ultimately, this bill could turn the Guard into little more than a state-centric security force and would undermine the professionalism and readiness that makes our Guard so effective. Mr. Chair and members, the National Guard is one of the most cost-effective and battle-proven forces our nation has. I respect you to vote no on this legislation and protect the Guard's readiness, mission, and future. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair.
Senator.
Mr. Aguirre, I'm going to read a little bit, and then I want your opinion on this, if you would, sir. Federal funds and equipment appropriated by the federal government to the National Guard to cover pay, training, and administration of the Guard for the purposes of readiness and training, which you talked about, set to meet federal standards. And this bill, 1047, doesn't interfere with the domestic Title 32 deployments or overseas training deployments, and only requires that Congress uphold its Article 1, Section 8 obligation to declare war before the Guard is released into overseas combat operations. So my question to you is, under what legal authority could the federal government withhold funding when Arizona continues to meet its readiness and training standards, which this bill does not interfere with?
Mr. Aguirre?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Rogers, that's a great question, but it doesn't need to go to the law. It needs to go with the inner workings of the Pentagon and how they shift resources to where they see fit. And in time of limited resources, the Pentagon has often gone first to the Guard, and sometimes to the Reserve, but mostly the Guard, because it's not Title 10, it's not federally controlled, to where the state ends up suffering, and the Guard ends up with the shorter side of the stick when it comes to equipment and funds. I'll give you an example. We were in Operation Iraq. When we first went to Iraqi freedom, the Guard was the ones that were going over there without the up-armored Humvees. Why was that? Because the Pentagon saw fit to have the active duty forces have the up-armored Humvees, and the Guard didn't. So what was the result of that? The Guard had much worse injuries, catastrophic fatalities, when they had hit an IED, which was the main weapon of choice against our enemies, both in Afghanistan and Iraq. The Pentagon has done that continuously. When a new mission comes out, and the chair was talking about the UAV missions and losing those, when the Pentagon, when those first came out, the Pentagon wants it all for the active duty. Well, the Guard has some of those missions. And in fact, you have the Arizona Air National Guard down in Davis-Monthan Air Force Base flying orbits in Title 10 status. When they go there from their home, from their kitchen, from their dinners or their breakfasts with their families, they go to Davis-Monthan, they put on their federal side, they're in Title 10 orders, and they fly missions all around the world supporting our patriots that are downrange. And those are the types of things that it's going to impact. They don't need a law, Senator, respectfully, to limit resources in that, especially when it's coming to a constrained environment of resources. And to add to that,
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, Senator?
Excuse me. To follow up with that, if as you say, it
Senator,
doesn't.
through the chair, please.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, Mr. Aguirre, if you say then, irrespective of the law, they shift resources willy-nilly, then I don't understand your logic, because this bill doesn't change their ability to do that. So if they're going to do that irrespective, then this bill, I would submit to you, would protect the Guard more than it's protected now.
Mr.
Mr.
Chair,
Aguirre?
Senator Rogers, I will tell you that the National Guard Association of the United States supports all 54 states, National Guard, territories, and the District of Columbia. And this talking page right here represents and I've talked to dozens, if not hundreds, of National Guard members at the National Guard Association conference, which I go to annually. And as the executive director of National Guard Association of Arizona, I live and breathe National Guard issues all the time. I have yet to speak to one leader, enlisted or officer, that is in favor of this because of what it does, where it puts us with the Pentagon, and not with the law, but with the Pentagon when it comes to resources, when it comes to new mission sets, when it comes to, as we keep developing and the weaponry and all the mission sets change and progress. The National Guard Association of the United States has a full one page and says, this is a bad bill. I understand the intention, but how often when was the last war that we had a congressional declaration for the war? Exactly. And so we're talking about the National Guard wouldn't have been able to be sent. I wouldn't have been able to go to Afghanistan unless it came to the Arizona legislature. And that's not the deal we have with the federal government. Constitutionally, the Arizona National Guard and all the National Guards with the federal government funds it at the high 90 percentile rate because the states cannot afford to do it themselves, especially in Arizona. You have KC-135, our model tankers at Sky Harbor. You have 70 F-16s down in Tucson. You have the UAV missions. You have all these things going on. I was the commander of the Counter-Drug Task Force. We created a drug prevention program that's the best in the country when I was the commander of that. We support not only counter-drug efforts, but we support law enforcement efforts along the border all along. That's what the Guard does. All this does is puts us in another bad light with the Department of Defense and gives them just another reason to not have the Guard as part of the overall play and support when it comes to our defending our nation, defending our homeland.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Senator?
excuse me, Mr. Aguirre, I think in a roundabout way you're making my case, and I'll tell you why. Because it starts with one state, and then it's multiplied by another state. And until all 50 states, 54 National Guard components stand up and say, we should not be deployed to combat unless the U.S. Congress says so, we have to start somewhere. And we have to do what's right and what's constitutionally mandated. And I hear about your worry about federal funding, but that is a lever to keep us from exercising these rights as National Guard components of states. And until we start incrementally chipping away at this and doing what's right, we're going to remain in this conundrum that you've described, which I do take issue with as to how valid it is. But as someone who served on active duty for 20 years and who flew and was operational, I can tell you that the Guard is essential, but it has to have control over its mission. And until we rise up and defend the Guard, which is the name of this act, we're going to flail around like this for time immemorial. So as a state senator, it's my job, who wore the uniform, to start the right path. And if it takes year after year and state after state, that's what it takes.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Senator Rogers,
Yeah.
who are you
For
working?
Rogers or for?
Senator Rogers.
All right, well, let's direct them to our guest at the moment. Are you finished
Okay,
with the guest? Or is he?
I
are
could
you
ask him
finished?
the same question.
Okay.
If he can't answer it, maybe Senator Rogers can, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Who are you working with on this bill? I mean, you mentioned, back to Senator Rogers, the years that you have served in the military. I've been here 15 years with a little break in between, and I know the process here, and it just keeps dying. So what is your plan? Who are you working with on this bill?
Mr. Aguirre, you're finished. We're good. Thank you. Senator, did you want to answer that?
Mr. Chair and Senator Miranda, that's a great question. I'm working with Bring Our Troops Home,
Okay.
which is a national organization of military veterans who are carrying this bill concept, as Mr. McKnight described.
Okay.
All right. Madam Vice.
Charles Herman. Rebecca Massey.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Rebecca Massey, and this is the second year in a row that I will be standing before you to discuss the Defend the Guard legislation. I'd like to start off with a quote from Daniel Webster, which is, "It will be the solemn duty of the state government to protect their own authority over their own militia and to interpose between their citizens and arbitrary power by the federal government." The National Guard is a very unique animal when it comes to any branch of the military. It has dual status, meaning that it serves both the federal and the state governments under Title 10. As Mr. Aguirre mentioned, it serves the federal government under the command of POTUS. Under Title 32, it serves under the state and at the command of the governor as Commander-in-Chief for the state of Arizona. The Guard forms a major backbone of many of our U.S. military forces. It has approximately 450,000 members combined between Air and Army. Since 2001, approximately 45% of the deployed troops on the global war on terror were indeed guardsmen when they were supposed to be a ready reserve. They suffered over 18% of the casualties, and currently there's about 48% of our guardsmen that are deployed under foreign peacekeeping missions. All post-World War II deployments have taken place without any congressional declaration of war. The Constitution is supposed to be the supreme law of the land, last time I checked, and anything that is contrary to that could be construed as an unlawful order, and we know that there have been many people on both sides of the aisle as of lately talking about not obeying an unlawful order. There is legal precedent for this. In 2022, Republican Governor DeSantis in Florida refused to send National Guardsman troop up to D.C. And just earlier this year, Governor Walz in Minnesota actually deployed the National Guard as a peacekeeping and as a order mission to assist with the state troops. The bill gives Arizona lawmakers a unique chance to actually be a part of history and being the first state to pass it through both chambers. So I implore you to be on the right side of history. The Pentagon and the DoD do actually fear this because year after year they do send high-ranking military officials to go ahead and refute this. And despite them claiming that they're making a neutral stance, they do not have a neutral stance, in fact, and they're actually in direct violation of DoD Directive 1344.10, which prohibits any statements being made of a partisan nature. I'd like to echo America's favorite congressman from Kentucky's 4th, who also shares my namesake, that I personally love this bill as well. I implore you to vote yes, and as I wrap up, I'd like to leave you with a quote from Dr. Ron Paul, which is, "Setting a good example is a far better way to spread ideals than through the force of arms." Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, Madam Vice.
Nathan Madden.
He is not here.
I'm going to speak for him. So
You're on the RTS now.
yeah.
Glenn Sollers. John Oliver. Don't know who else you would be.
What about, is there a white sheet?
Say that again.
Ethan Canny.
There you are. Ethan Canny, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Close to the mic.
My name is Ethan Canny. I'm here to represent Nathan Madden. He is the second vice chairman of the Arizona Libertarian Party. And this is his 4th year coming to speak in support of this bill. So this is his speech that I'll be reading. I'd like to thank Senator Rogers for once again sponsoring, as this is the most important legislation of his lifetime, of our lifetime. SB 1047, the Defend the Guard bill, ensures our citizen soldiers aren't called into battle to make the ultimate sacrifice without proper constitutional authority, protecting them from unauthorized foreign entanglements that put them senselessly in harm's way. The founders of this great country knew states like Arizona would be the ultimate check on federal power. We can see this plainly in the Federalist Papers. Today, you can exercise that by defending our Guard and restoring true constitutional governance. The Arizona National Guard belongs to Arizona. It's even in its name. For over 75 years, Washington has completely shredded the idea of federalism and turned our Guard into tools for endless foreign adventurism and playthings of the military-industrial complex. This is overreach at its worst, an empire bullying states with threats and intimidation to pull funding. How much clearer does it need to be that Arizona is in an abusive relationship with D.C.? It's your job to say our Guard isn't for sale. As a practical matter, Arizona needs our Guard here for wildfires, floods, disasters, not halfway around the world in conflicts that drain resources and end lives. As libertarians, and more importantly as Arizonans, we oppose the needless loss of life of the status quo. Think of the Tucson kid who joins to serve his community only to be shipped to a 20-year quagmire in Afghanistan with no clear goal and comes home in a flag-draped coffin. And for what? To replace the Taliban with the Taliban. It's clear the Pentagon fears this bill because they've They have sent 1- and 2-star brass every year to speak against its violation. And to speak against it in violation of DoD directives, and that says it all. It's time to let them know we will not be bullied, and we will not be bought, and we will not surrender what is rightfully ours. The Arizona Libertarian Party stands with this bill. We urge you to do the same. Vote yes on Defend the Guard. Thank you.
All right, that's it? All right, move a bill, please.
Mr. Chair, I move Senate Bill 1047 with a due pass
All right,
recommendation.
members, you heard that motion. Mr. Secretary.
Senator Dunn,
Aye.
Senator Gonzalez,
No.
Senator Miranda,
No.
Senator Rogers,
Mr. Chair, may I explain my vote?
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's interesting that the side opposite votes no and wants to send our guard into harm's way without a congressional declaration of war. And I think it's also interesting that for the most part, we've had more testifiers for the bill than against the bill. And these are people who have served in combat, served in harm's way, and who understand. And my colleague, Senator Dunn, is nodding his head because last year he came to me, if I may be honest with everyone, and said, Rogers, why are you running this bill? I have a nephew in the Guard, and I'm going to consult him. And I said, well, Senator Dunn, let's put him on the phone. So we just got his nephew on speakerphone and asked him point blank, without him having had any preconceived notions about it, what he thought. And he said he was completely in support once I explained it to him. So I would submit to you that the military, and the Guard in particular, who understand what we're trying to do here, is in strong support. Because it is up to the United States Congress to declare war before we send the National Guard to war. And if this reaches the governor's desk and gets vetoed, we'll run it again. And we'll run it again, and we'll run it again. Because this is our charge, to make sure that we bring our troops home. And with that, I vote aye.
Senator Sears,
No.
Senator Champ,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I want to speak to the conversation about whether or not this bill has passed out of the House or what has happened to it. And I would say that we can use a foreign adversaries bill that has been quite contentious for a number of years as an example of, you know what, sometimes things happen, and when we can all come together, we can get good legislation passed, because it does happen. And with that, I vote aye.
Senator Gowan,
Aye.
4 ayes, 3 noes, 0 not voted.
Members, 4 ayes, 3 noes, 0 not vote, and you've given Senate Bill 1047 due pass recommendation.
Thank you.